How's it going, everyone? It's Ben Foggins, Media Corner, back again with a brand new video for today. Welcome back to another movie review, aka After I Saw. This time it's going to be on Paddington in Peru. Now, this is a 2024 live-action animated comedy film, and of course, this is the third entry to the Paddington film series. In this film, when Paddington, once again voiced by Ben Whishaw, discovers that his beloved Aunt Lucy has gone missing from the home for retired bears, we see him and the Brown family head to the jungles of Peru to find her. And while determined to solve the mystery, they soon stumble across a legendary treasure as they make their way through the rainforests of the Amazon. So that's pretty much the story of Paddington in Peru. Now, back in 2014, when the first Paddington movie was coming out, I had very low expectations for it because when I first saw the trailers for that movie, they didn't really impress me that much because I just immediately thought it was going to be another one of those generic family films that's based off children's properties that's either based off a book or a cartoon, and they just turn out to be just total garbage films, like the Alvin and the Chipmunks movies, the Smurfs movies, and other pretty terrible movies out there that's based off kids' properties. But thankfully, the first Paddington film didn't turn out to be like those movies because that film totally surprised me, and I had a genuine fantastic time with that movie, and it was truly one of the best family films I've ever seen in years. And then the second movie that came out in 2017, that sequel surprised all of us because a lot of people said the sequel was generally even better than the first movie, and I definitely have to agree with that because I absolutely love the sequel, and I can even see that film being an instant classic in the next few years. And of course, when I heard there was going to be a third Paddington movie, I was really excited for it, but I was also a little bit curious as well because there's a few differences around this one. The fact that Paul King did not come back to direct this one because, of course, he was the director of the first two Paddington films. And when I heard about that, and I was kind of heartbroken to hear about that, but I totally respected him since he had his full commitment to do that Wonka film that was coming out in 2023. But I was pretty curious to see what first-time director Dougal was going to be doing with this new entry to the Paddington film series. And another thing that I was also curious about was the fact that Sally Hawkins did not come back for this movie as Mrs. Brown, in which she played that character in the first two films. In this one, she got replaced by Emily Mortimer, which I was pretty curious to see what she was going to be doing for filling in Sally Hawkins' shoes of playing that character from the first two Paddington films. And I did check out this movie back in November of last year. And while I wouldn't necessarily say it was as good as the last Paddington film, but I wouldn't necessarily say this was a disappointing entry to the series, but because I can still say this was definitely another great entry to this bearable film series that involves this beloved bear that we all know and love here. For the character of Paddington Bear that the film highlights here, I thought was well navigated, where it brings an extra layer to himself, where we see him reconnecting with his roots as well as navigating the homeland of Peru once he comes back to Peru. And this adventure that we do follow within the film, I thought was well-spirited for Paddington and the Brown family, where we see them heading their way through the jungles of Peru to find Aunt Lucy. Even though the first few minutes of the film does tend to feel a bit slow, but it does manage to pick itself up once we get into this new adventure in the film. And there are often times where the film has a few elements to various adventure films, in which there were a few that did kind of put me off guard a little bit, but there were a few that I didn't really mind all that often. And there are often times where the film does tend to pull your heartstrings when it comes to some of the emotions in the film, in which there were times where it does work for me, but there were often times where I felt weren't as strong as the first two Paddington films' emotions, because the emotions in that film I thought were genuinely powerful, and yet they were very strong, because I really felt for Paddington so much in those two films, like in the first film when we see him trying to find a home, and then the second film where we see him being framed for a crime that he didn't commit, and we see him being sent to jail. And as for Dougal Wilson himself, I thought he did a solid job directing this film, especially when it came to the adventurous moments that goes on within the movie. And when it comes to the cast themselves, Ben Whishaw is still once again really fun and lovable as Paddington Bear, especially when it comes to seeing him interacting with things that we do as humans, and he often does them in a goofy way, which that's what I love about these films, when we see Paddington trying to do what we do as humans, and we see him doing it in his own way, and those moments are just genuinely funny. And as for the Brown family themselves, Hugh Bonnevile is still really good as Mr. Brown. He's really funny. And as for Emily Mortimer, who replaced Sally Hawkins in this movie, she was really good, even though I do like Sally Hawkins just a little bit more than Emily Mortimer as this character from the first two Paddington films. And even for the kids themselves, who have grown a lot in recent years, they are once again really good together. And Julie Walters is once again just really fun in the movie as the neighbor of the Brown family. And as for the new people in this film, which you've got Olivia Coleman and Antonio Banderas, they were really fun and they were really good together in the film. And even the actress who plays the daughter of Antonio Banderas' character, I thought she was really good in the movie. Although there is a twist that involves a villain in the film here, and when it came to that aspect in the film, I kind of felt it was just unnecessary to me when it came to that aspect within this movie. But in all honesty, Paddington in Peru, while not as good as the last Paddington movie, I still overall had a really great time with this new adventure film here involving this lovable bear. Even though I would have to say this is probably the weakest entry when it comes to these movies, but it is still overall a great entry to this series of films. And if you're overall a huge fan of these series of films involving this lovable bear, chances are you're not going to be disappointed with this one in the slightest. I can definitely see that children will have a lot of fun with this movie here, as well as probably the adults as well here. I'm going to give Paddington in Peru 4 out of 5. Like I said, I would have to say this is probably the weakest entry when it comes to the Paddington film series, even though I still overall had a really great time with this one, even though it's just not as good as the last Paddington film, since the last one is my favorite of this whole series of films, and I cannot wait to see where the fourth one will go in the future, since we are going to get a fourth Paddington movie very soon. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching my AK After Hours review on Paddington in Peru, and I'd like to know what you guys think of this new entry to the Paddington film series, if you've already seen this movie or if you just recently checked this one out. And as always, this has been Foggins Media Corner signing off.